Let's go ahead with the next part. We've got a talk here from Eric Kuyala, who's going to talk about an expedition over to the hinterlands. Come on up, Eric.
Good. Okay. Hi, everyone. You may recall a couple of months ago, I did a presentation. Chuck O'Dale, your ex-past president, and I flew over Algonquin Park and did a tour, and we flew over the Brent crater and then flew to another site which we thought could be a crater. That was in August. So we flew up to the Brent crater, and then we made our way down to this place here called ALSEVER. And after that, we did a day trip on the ground to the area just to scout it, to find out where everything is. And that was in September. And then in October, we finally did our trip to ALSEVER to find out if this place, in fact, is an impact crater. Algonquin Park, some of you may not know, is about 2 hours drive from Ottawa. Ottawa would be about here. And then we went down the Highway 60 and then accessed the southern end of the park by road into here. And if we can go to the next slide, please. And found our way to this site here, which is Lake ALSEVER on this side, and this is called Lake Roundbush. This whole thing here we thought could be an impact crater, and it looks very similar to Brent, because Brent has two lakes like this with a joining spot, and sometimes when I was going through the photos, I would actually confuse the two. They look so much alike. So this was from our aerial exploration. Next slide, please. And our objective to find out if ALSEVER was in fact an impact crater was this outcropping here. And so our ground expedition to the crater on the weekend of October 23rd, we got to the park, and if we could go to the next slide, please. We got to the park and to the southern boundary about here, and then made our, let's see if I can see that right. It's a little funny from this side. Made our way up this cart trail, and then to the Allen River, and then to the lake. This is Lake ALSEVER here. Next slide, please. To get to the crater, we had to haul the canoe 4 kilometers down the trail. And I'll tell you, Chuck O'Dale deserves a medal for pulling this canoe with a harness down that cart trail. Thank you very much, Chuck. He had trekking poles, and we made it down to the river. Next slide, please. This is the Allen River that leads there. So we got to about here. This is the cart trail, and then we have to go up this river here. It's a small river. It's not a big river. I've done much bigger rivers. But we went down this river, and we got to a point on the river where there's a portage that leads to the lake. If we could go to the next one, please. So here we have the river, and we went down to, let's see here, to about here, and then portaged to here, and then to the lake. This is ALSEVER Lake here. So this would be the crater here. And so we went down. We actually camped on the river the Friday night because we didn't have enough time to actually get to the lake. Also, we decided not to camp on the lake because we had a lot of gear to haul. You could see from that previous shot. So we camped on the river, and the next morning we decided to do our trip to the lake. If we could go to the next slide, please. This is what the river looks like. It's full of beaver dams all the way up. I didn't see a single beaver, but we saw all these dams. We counted at least 8 dams, right, Chuck? About that. So there's Chuck standing on one of the dams, and we're actually paddling up the river because the water flows down this way south. So we're paddling up towards the lake. If we could go to the next slide, please. And just before we got to our campsite, we saw Mr. Moose here enjoying the view and that, and apparently he was bothering Chuck all night that night, Friday night. Hey, Chuck, he came to visit you at the campsite. Yeah.
That's not a Sasquatch?
No. Algonquin Park is full of moose, and I wasn't surprised to see one. But yeah, you don't want to bug them too much. Next slide, please. So next morning we get up, and what do we find? So this is the river, and we camped right on the shore, and Chuck made coffee, and I got up and I saw him drinking his coffee there, happy as anything, and that's how our Saturday morning started. And okay, next slide, please. There I am, big smile. Next slide, please. And this is the little lake in between ALSEVER Lake and where we were camped on the river. Next slide, please. And this is the portage sign for getting to the lake. Next slide, please. And we had to haul. Fortunately, we didn't have to carry everything with us, just the canoe and our day packs. And I'm used to portaging. I've been doing it all my life. It was a little trickier for Chuck, especially after hauling that canoe all that way down that trail there. Next slide, please. And here we are at ALSEVER Lake, finally. And it was something we'd been waiting for a while to do. Next slide, please. Now we're on the lake, and this is the outcropping I showed you before. This was the main target of our trip, to find out if we could find impact melt, shatter cones, breccia, any tangible sign that an impact had happened here. Next slide, please. I love this picture. I think this is one of my favorite pictures of it. It's a perfect reflection. Saturday, I don't know if anyone remembers that Saturday, October 24th. It was a calm, warm day. It didn't feel like October at all, and we loved it. Next slide, please. Once we got to the outcropping, we started to examine the rocks, and Chuck has more knowledge on what to look for than I do. So I was learning a lot from him, actually, about what was there, including a new word I learned called pegmatite, which is a type of rock that we found there. Next slide, please. And the outcropping, is very interesting geologically, but it didn't tell us very much about whether there had been an impact there. In fact, it sort of leaned the other way, which was a bit disappointing, that we couldn't see what we wanted to see. We would have preferred seeing a big mound of impact melt, like we had seen on craters that we knew were craters. Next slide, please. And we did find some markings on rocks which we thought were interesting, that had some striations on them, but still not shatter cones. Next slide, please. One thing I did, which I hadn't done on previous trips, and I regretted that, was taking water samples and testing the pH level. Because on Brent Crater, it was noted that the water is more alkaline than lakes normally are. So I did a pH level test in here, and they were consistent with normal lake acidity levels. They were not alkaline. They were actually below. They were about 6.8 or 6.5 pH level. They would normally be above 7 if they were alkaline. Next slide, please. And this is the spot in between the two lakes. Roundbush Lake would be back here. So we went up to this spot. You see Chuck's hand there holding the canoe in place while I stand up and take this picture. We decided not to go to Roundbush Lake because it would have been a lot of work to get through all of this. So we continued staying on the ALSEVER side of the lake. Next slide, please. We found an island with a funny-looking bird's nest on it. I don't know what kind of bird would build that, but we decided to take a break. A hawk's nest? Okay. An osprey's nest, of course. Okay. And took a break on the, you know what? I thought it was an osprey's nest. I've seen one before. I just wasn't sure. Thank you. Next slide, please. There's Chuck, relaxing after I kept tiring him out doing all that canoeing and paddling and pulling the canoe and that. And the trip was actually was relaxing. You know, we were able to take our time and enjoy ourselves. It's, you know, when we explore, there's the serious side where you want to do some science and learn things, but you also have to enjoy yourself. And that's what we did on this trip. Next slide, please. There's a better shot of the nest. Next, please.
Except for humans.
Yeah, it probably could sit in. Yeah, that would make a funny picture. Found some quartz rocks on the island. No particular evidence that there was an impact there, but it's nice to take those kinds of pictures, to show that you are looking for things. Next slide, please. And there I am relaxing, a little scenic picture with my canoe. That canoe, by the way, has been all over the place. It's been on Lake Superior, it's been on Manicouagan, it's been on Lake Mistassini, it's been in many trips in James Bay, going down rivers, and I've had it for almost 20 years. It's an Old Town tripper, and it is a workhorse. You cannot go wrong with this canoe. It's a tank. You can bash through rocks with it, everything. It'll carry a ton of stuff in it without any problem. And because it doesn't have a keel, it's very easy to maneuver, especially in rough water. When you go into places, especially the reservoirs, tend to be very dangerous, and you're better off having one of those. It's built for whitewater canoeing, actually. Next slide, please. Okay, I think our slides may be out of sequence here. Anyways, this is a picture of Chuck on our way back, and if you look carefully, you'll see something on his nose. That's when his nose met the side of my canoe on the way back. And we decided to take the river back almost all the way back to the car. The river actually is not far from the car, but we took the cart trail up because we thought it would be easier. On the way back, we took the river back, which was a big mistake because the river has trees fallen across it all the way down. If we can go to the next slide. And it looks like that. So we had to pull the canoe over all these trees, and I said to Chuck, we must really love craters, don't we? We really love craters. And he said, yes, Eric, we do. And so we struggled our way back to the car that Sunday afternoon doing that. And next slide, please. And that some places it narrowed like that, and it just got better and better as we got along. Now can we go back to the first slide? What I want to tell you now, yeah, the aerial photo, yeah. What I want to tell you now is that we did not find any evidence that it's an impact crater. So for now, it remains a mystery as to whether it is or not. The only sure way we could find if it's an impact crater is with about $1 million to take a drill and to drill down through the rock to see the layers, what they're like, and to find evidence of impact melt that way. So if you have $1 million, give me a call. And so I've come up with 3 possibilities for this site. And next summer I plan to actually go back there. See, the river is down here, okay? So I plan to come back, and that cart trail actually leads all the way to the top of this ridge here. You can actually walk it in a day and back. Chuck wanted to go up to here, with the canoe, and then have us slide down to the lake. And I said, no, let's just take the river. But you can do a day walk to the top here, and I want to explore the top to see if I can find any evidence there. Anyone who wants to join me for a nice day trip, let me know. But I've come up with 3 possibilities in regards to this place. One is it is not an impact crater. 2, it is an impact crater, but we just haven't found signs of it yet. And 3, it's an impact crater, but all the signs have been washed away. Now, this site, compared to Brent, it doesn't have the ridge that Brent has. Like when we went to the Brent crater, we actually had to go down into the lakes. There's no sign of that here. The Alien River actually comes from here, from the north, and then makes its way down da-di-da, and then goes down this way, heads south. Well, that means if it's heading down and it's pretty well level, that means any ridges have disappeared in here that would have prevented that. So I'm thinking that it could be an impact crater, but it wasn't protected the way Brent was. See, the Brent crater was actually buried in sediment for a very long period of time after the impact, and it was preserved in the mud. And it's about 450 million years old. Craters don't last that long. They only last about 250 million years. But Brent survived because it was covered in that mud in the Sea of Champlain. And the last ice age wiped everything away and washed away and re-exposed it to what we see now. This site here may simply not have been protected the way Brent was. And so any evidence of it being an impact crater are now gone. So this is where we're at. And I can tell you that I was not disappointed at all to not find anything. When we do these explorations, crater or no crater, we had a ball. And we were enjoying ourselves, and exploring this kind of thing for me is great. It's something I enjoy doing with Chuck, and that's where we're at with it. Chuck, did you have anything you wanted to add?
The moose was really cute. You're obviously on expedition way too long.
Yeah. You sure you didn't come in your tent, Chuck? Okay, so did anyone have any questions?
Just to add something there, that moose did come into our site during the night and bashed down some trees.
Yeah, he knocked the tree down. Yeah, I heard the crack. Yeah. Good thing it didn't fall on your tent there. He was right behind you. It's a mystery site. We've got other sites we plan on going to, but the only thing that would have been disappointing about this trip would have been not going. And I love the new motto at NASA that says, if you don't go, you'll never know. Thank you. Oh, yeah, you had a question?
Yeah, just wondering, that's a totally remote area. There are no cottages or anything up there, or people who...
No, not the southern boundary of the park is somewhere around here. Okay, so there are cottages further down, and theoretically, from if you were stuck, like if that moose had knocked our canoe over and dragged it into the water and so on, we could have walked back. We would have found the trail. We would have had to find it. It's somewhere in here, and then we would have been able to walk back to the car. But fortunately, that didn't happen.
What does the government say about it? Have they done any research onto that?
No.
Nothing at all?
No, and the only way we knew about it was someone actually emailed Chuck and suggested this site. And we thought, gee, what a great thing to do, to actually explore a place that might be a crater, because all the other places we've been to, we already knew they were craters. And so this was a challenge for us. I also have to say that physically this was the most challenging site we've been to. Right, Chuck?
Yeah.
But we enjoyed it very much. Yes, sir.
I had a question, but you answered it, I think. The river is flowing south, roughly?
Yes, it goes...
You're not far enough so that they're going toward the Arctic. You're not far enough north.
No. ALSEVER is, in fact, I think it's south of this latitude. It's yeah. It's a southern boundary of the park. So it's actually it's pretty well due west of here. But the river here, we were originally going to start from the north part and make our way down here. And it's a good thing we didn't, because this would have been really tough to do. The trip we did was actually the relatively speaking, the easiest of the access points. We also found out that you can't go from the north because there's no access to cars. Only the people who, there's actually hydro lines not far from here that the service people go to, and also the natives have access to the park from the north, but we couldn't go from there. Yes, sir?
Any observing at night?
No, it was
Snowed?
pretty well full moon, I think, wasn't it? Or there was a cloud cover. I did take a picture of the moon. It's not in here. And that was it. No, there was no visibility that night. Friday night or Saturday night.
Could you pop up the topographic map that showed that in detail?
Yeah, you can go to the next. Okay.
Yeah, okay, so I'm seeing what you could think of as being a suggestion of a contiguous circular formation, because you can see a little bit of a valley
Yes.
of sorts that completes the circle, okay.
When we flew over it, I because it's a 3D thing, you know, with your eyes, you're seeing it in stereo and with a lot more clarity than any photo can show. I thought I saw an outline, but it was just there, and that's what convinced me. And I kept telling Chuck, driving all the way up, yeah, it's a crater, yeah, it's a crater. And Chuck's there, and so we just went and tried to find what we could. And I have to admit, we didn't have as much time as we would like. You know, that always happens. You want to be able to have more time. We spent basically about 6 or 8 hours on the lake exploring, and that's a very short period of time to try to find anything. But we knew what we were looking for, and that outcropping, which is about here, and the island that we were on was here. But the outcropping here, we that's what we looked at mostly, and we didn't like what we saw there. Igneous rock, and I'm not a geologist, but I knew that it didn't look like something that would happen in an impact, and it could still be, but the signs are not there, and so it's not an impact crater.
Yeah, it is igneous rock located at what you would call essentially ground zero of the impact. It should have been well bashed, right?
Yes. Oh, well, what was really cool was some of that rock looked like it had been bent. It's like, like a mattress. It just whoosh, went, some of it was, remember that, Chuck? It had all that weird bending in it, and that's something I hadn't seen before. But I don't know if an impact would have done that, or if it would have been just the sheer weight of the rock coming down on itself. The cracks looked bent, like they had been weighted down. That could be because of the impact. But
if it's a smooth bend, that's the kind of stuff that happens over geologic time. Very slow,
Yeah.
gradual forces that don't cause the rock to shatter, but to gradually flex like a plastic.
That's right. We saw lots of features in those rocks, Chuck, that you were really fascinated with, and I paid more attention to after I saw that. That we learn a lot. I do learn a lot about geology. I just wish I had the training, the formal training in geology. But Chuck's a great instructor in that. He's always pointing out things that I would never see otherwise.
Okay, maybe we can take one more question and then we'll move on.
Back here.
Yes, Deborah.
Can you send me an article for astronauts?
Sure. Yeah, absolutely. We'll send you a full report. And also, it's on. Chuck is going to be updating. Have you updated your website yet for that?
For your pictures, Eric.
As soon as you get the pictures. Okay. Sorry about that.
One more question, Eric, back here.
Yes.
Just on a slight bit of a tangent here, since the two of you seem to be the RASC's unofficial version of the Crater Busters,
Yeah.
which one of you have decided is Jamie?
Oh. Pfft.
Have a nice day. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.